Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're stepping into a world that's rarely seen in plain daylight, yet it shapes almost every single aspect of our modern lives. We're going way past the red carpets and the glamour to investigate the absolute peaks of extreme wealth. Let's dive right in.
What if I told you that the world's richest people don't just control companies? They influence technology, media, politics, and even the future of humanity. Behind the luxury, private jets, and billion-dollar empires lies a world of controversy, power, and secrets. This is the dark side of billionaires. Seriously, this isn't just about money anymore, right? It's about unparalleled global influence. And to really grasp this kind of power, we've got to break it down, piece by piece.
Section 1. The Billionaire Phenomenon.
You know, society has this deeply rooted, almost global obsession with extreme wealth. We see the mega yachts, the sprawling estates, the magazine covers, and honestly, it completely captivates us. It kind of represents this level of freedom and success that feels almost mythological. But here's the thing. This glittering facade often acts like a massive shiny object. It catches the light, so we don't look at the actual structural mechanics operating right there in the shadows. We focus so much on the luxury that we completely miss the massive leverage happening behind closed doors.
Section 2. Mechanics of massive wealth.
So how do they actually do it? Well, the foundation of billionaire wealth really relies on three primary engines. First up, building global businesses. Scaling an enterprise until its reach literally crosses oceans and borders. Second, strategic investments. This is where they use massive capital to generate its own gravity, basically pulling in even more resources through some seriously calculated financial maneuvering. And third, driving innovation, disrupting the status quo, creating new tech, and fundamentally changing how we all live. That right there is the exact blueprint for creating a billion-dollar empire.
But okay, here is exactly where that blueprint gets a little complicated. Monopolies. When a business becomes too successful, it can literally swallow a market entirely. What starts out as amazing innovation slowly morphs into exclusive control over a commodity or a service. And this is that critical threshold, right? The point where extreme wealth stops being just a standard business success story and becomes a focal point of intense global scrutiny, mostly because unchecked market power begins to stifle the exact same competition that birthed it in the first place.
Section 3. The dark side.
Which brings us to our first major controversy, tax avoidance. The world's richest individuals operate within an incredibly complex system of global wealth navigation. It's actually rarely about breaking laws. Instead, it's about utilizing vast resources to find loopholes, shell companies, and offshore structures that everyday citizens just absolutely cannot access. The real friction here stems from the fact that those with the most resources can effectively and legally minimize their financial contribution back to the very societies that helped foster their immense wealth.
And then we have to look at the friction on the ground. We really have to contrast the extreme wealth at the top with the everyday realities of the workers who are actually powering these empires. Because when a company scales to these unprecedented sizes just to generate billions, the human element frequently gets marginalized. We see this all the time in strict quota systems, grueling shifts, and suppressed wages. This stark tension between profit maximization and worker welfare is without a doubt one of the most pressing criticisms leveled at extreme wealth today.
Okay, next up is the issue of power translating directly into policy through lobbying. Think about it. When you control a billion-dollar empire, you inherently possess the massive capital required to literally shape the rules of the game. This financial weight is frequently utilized to exert influence over media narratives, political campaigns, and actual real-world legislation, which raises a huge critical question. When extreme wealth can just rewrite public policy, how does that impact the democratic process itself?
Finally, living in our modern digital era, we run right into the issue of privacy. The platforms you and I use daily to communicate, to shop, to share our lives, they're owned by a select few. That means unprecedented amounts of our personal, intimate data intersect directly with these massive tech empires. This raises monumental concerns about surveillance, consent, and who ultimately holds power over the world's most valuable modern commodity. And yeah, I'm talking about our personal information.
Section 4. Modern Titans.
Let's look at some real-world examples, starting with our first case study, Elon Musk. Musk really represents the absolute bleeding edge of driving innovation. From electric vehicles dominating the auto industry to privately funded space exploration, he's everywhere. But his vast empire also perfectly encapsulates our core controversies. We're talking immense market power, massive influence over technology and media discourse, and significant sway over the very future of human infrastructure. He's a prime example of extreme wealth moving way beyond standard business and into, literally, multi-planetary influence.
Next up, we have Jeff Bezos. The Amazon empire is probably the ultimate illustration of building and scaling global businesses to just monolithic proportions. Bezos' journey highlights the extreme friction between unparalleled logistical innovation, like the ability to deliver almost anything, anywhere, practically instantly, and the stark, ground-level realities of worker conditions and aggressive monopolistic practices that are basically required to keep that massive global machine operating at peak efficiency.
Concluding our case studies is Mark Zuckerberg. His fortune is built entirely on the new digital frontier, which links directly back to our themes of technology and data privacy. By creating the platforms where literally billions of people actively connect every single day, his empire holds incredible, unprecedented power over public discourse, media consumption, and those immense, unseen algorithmic data structures that are tracking our daily digital lives.
Section 5. Innovation versus exploitation.
So, here is the ultimate debate. On one side of the scale, we have the severe criticisms we've just unpacked, the complex navigation of tax avoidance, the stifling control of monopolies, and the harsh realities of marginalized worker conditions. But to be completely objective here, we've got to weigh this against the immense positive contributions. We're talking about driving world-changing innovation, fueling entire economies through massive strategic investment, and frequently funding historic global health initiatives that governments alone simply cannot manage. It is a profoundly complex balance.
Which leaves us right here, looking at one defining question. When you consider their immense power to innovate and solve massive global problems, and then weigh that against the deep controversies of monopolies and unprecedented influence, are billionaires ultimately good or bad for the future of humanity? I'm going to leave that for you to decide. Keep questioning, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.